So how can you tell if something's important nowadays? How can you tell if something's a big deal or it's something that I should pay attention to? Well, I imagine it would be the same way it's always been, maybe just slightly different, in that people are talking about it. People are sharing on social media their opinions about it. They're sharing different opinions of others in that regard. It's talked about everywhere, on social media, on the internet, on TV, on the radio, at work, in the office. It's talked about. Because if something is talked about enough, then it starts getting ingrained into our heads, into our lives. Even if we don't tend to believe one way and live one way, if we are so consumed with that and we're surrounded by it day in and day out, eventually it starts to become truth to us. But there's one thing that we've stopped hearing about that we were going to look at today. But what's trending on CNN right now? So, we got to talk about CNN. But right now, some things that are trending is Trump is on there, as always. Biden, talking about Russia, G7, the summit that the leaders went to, and Israel's on there. Those are some of the top stories whenever I pull up the website this morning. But there's really nothing about police on there. There's nothing about police departments, police budgets. If you scroll down a little bit there, then we get to a few shootings and gun violence and things of that nature. But there's really nothing about defunding the police. And if you've been aware of anything for the past year, that's been a huge topic, a huge headline, is defund the police. Take money from the police because police is bad. That's been a huge thing, and I want to say that what really sparked that was last summer when we had the George Floyd incident. Defunding the police was talked about. It's not talked about anymore. But nevertheless, some of that information, some of that push from the people has stuck. Some states and budgets are reflecting that push, that agenda. And so one of those articles that you can find on CNN, their headline is "Gun Violence in 6 States This Weekend Brings U.S. Mass Shootings to 272 so far this year." And there's a portion in their article, the total number of mass shootings is about 40% higher than at this point in 2020, and about 65% higher than at this point in 2019, according to the data from the Gun Violence Archive. There was an estimated 194 mass shootings in the U.S. during the same period in 2020, and an estimated 164 mass shootings in the U.S. in this same period in 2019. So shootings have went up, but what's to blame? What's to blame? I mean, if you take their words for what they are, based on this headline, gun violence. So again, this is what we see. We see that guns are to blame. Guns are the problem. Guns are what's to blame. Because, as we've talked about before, CNN has a very liberalistic agenda. What they share, what they talk about, what they push is typically that of the left side, of the Democratic side. So we see violence at a higher percentage, at a higher rate than the past 2 years, according to CNN. The Charlotte Observer for Ohio, it states this: now $770,000 have been designated for police. Is going towards other departments or agencies to offer outreach to homeless people, community engagement efforts, response to animal and noise complaints, and technology for safety and transparency, according to the city. Some of those changes involved reassigning positions to other city departments, including animal control and park wardens. And so again, this article is from one of those states that CNN stated as one of the six, as being bad, as being high in numbers. And so we're wanting to take money away from the potential solution and designate it somewhere else where it's not going to help us. Noise complaints are not going to help with gun control. Having better animal control and park wardens is not going to help with gun control. So it would seem silly and foolish to take from one critical area when there's obviously a need, even coming from a place like CNN, and try and change that. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Killings spiked in the U.S. and Republicans blame calls to defund the police, but they are also rising in cities that increase spending on cops. This is what Chicago Tribune tells us. And, you know, it's unfortunately, I think it's always going to be this way, but it seems as if we just have a catfight between one side or the other. The Democratic side blames the Republican side and vice versa. There's no sense of unity and joining together anymore to come up with solutions and fix problems that we face. There's none of that. And it's sad. And it's sad that we can't have that. But again, whenever we just call out each other like this, it's not helping anybody. But what this Chicago Tribune says, I think there's some contradictive stuff in here based on their claim with the headline and their information on the inside. This is last year in Minneapolis, city officials shifted $8 million, less than 5% of the police budget, to programs focused on community mental health and violence prevention. In February, they approved $6.4 million to hire new police officers after an unprecedented number of officers retired or went on extended medical leave following Floyd's killing. So last year we took $8 million away, and then this February, we gave some money back to help in different areas with retirements and LOAs and things like that. Still not back up to the $8 million, so we cut the funding. In Portland, homicides were up from 6 in the first 5 months of 2020 to 38 in the first 5 months of 2021. A 530% increase. LA and Chicago have also seen double-digit increases in their homicide rates this year, and they did reduce spending on police. Chicago cut its police budget by 3%, largely by eliminating vacant positions. LA reduced spending on police by about 5%, yet homicide rates are increasing in cities that didn't cut spending. So all the ones that we just looked at are major cities, and they were cut. And the percentages may sound small, 5%, 3%, but you have to imagine and think about that in perspective to a large number, millions, or if not billions of dollars that are or were designated to these departments. And so we get to that point and we think, well, you just said that it's not due to defunding the police, but here we are defunding the police. Well, I mean, it goes on a little bit. So to be fair, it says in Houston, a city led by a Democratic mayor, killings have increased, but so too has funding for the police. Nashville, Tennessee, also led by a Democratic mayor, increased the police budget, but has seen homicides spike 50% so far this year over last. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Fresno, California, have also seen more killings so far in 2021, but both cities have Republican mayors. I'm not saying that if we fund the police, the violence will stop. That's not going to happen. That's not how it works. There's always going to be circumstances events that happen that are outside of our control, outside of our armed forces control. That we can't stop it all. They can't stop it all. But at the same time, if we look at the statistics, we can't say and argue that having more is going to hurt us, because it's not. It's not going to. Because I would imagine that if I were someone who was going to commit some kind of crime, and I hear, and again, I don't think that a lot of people who are going to do this have logical thought and who stop and weigh the options. But if I had logical thought and I was told that, oh man, the police funding has went up 5%, I might be a little more leery to think that there's going to be more on patrol. There's going to be more people watching for bad things to happen. Whereas if I cut the funding by 5%, there's going to be obviously less people watching and more opportunity to do it and to get away with it. That makes sense. I mean, I think that would make sense to my 5-year-old if I told him that. If I asked him a question, do you think that more police or less police will help stop crimes? I'm pretty sure he would know the answer. So again, this slogan for defunding the police is becoming non-existent. It's a thing in the past. It's a thing in the past. And it's sad and silly how fast we just jump from topic to topic. It's like we get bored with it. It's like we get bored with some situation or scenario before we actually find the solution and fix the problem. Which that can't happen. I mean, when we get on a problem, we need to solve the problem. We don't just need to sweep it under the rug and hope it goes away. No, it doesn't work that way. In Durham, North Carolina, the city is removing a bright gold defund sign painted on the road in front of the police headquarters a year ago. It's a step in the right direction. It's sad that it stayed there a year, but they're removing it. Apparently, according to the article, it's causing low morale for their officers. Yeah, no kidding. I would be less likely to do a certain job if I'm not appreciated for it. It's nice to have appreciation for what you do. And another interesting thing is, according to Best Places, Durham is a very liberal place. So again, that's a nice step. It's progress. We want to see things like that. We want to back the boys in blue. We want to show appreciation for what they do. And depending on what city you're in, obviously there's way more violent ones than others, but putting your life on the line, essentially, not knowing what will happen that day and what might take place. And then stories like this always they crack me up. They show the ignorant side of some people, and they don't think about it before the people bring it out. And it would be humiliating if I was this person. So New York Post talks about Maya Wiley. She's a Democratic mayor candidate, and she wants to cut $1 billion, so with a B, from the New York Police Department's budget. At the same time, her home is being protected by a private security patrol in her Brooklyn neighborhood. You see how stupid that is? Wiley, who on Sunday clashed with rival Eric Adams over her plan to defund the police, if elected, claimed in December that she thought the private security was ridiculous and we shouldn't have it. But she said her life partner, Harlan Mandel, began paying the annual fees without her knowledge to the Prospect Park South Charitable Trust to fund a guard who drives around the area. And she's not the only one. She's not the only one. If you are famous enough, if you are rich enough, if you have your, if you are in it for the people per se, you probably have that kind of luxury, that kind of security. But those same people who are fighting against our police, who are fighting against our armed forces, are the same ones who in turn have those armed forces for themselves. So again, she's fighting for it from New York, and New York is one of our most populated cities or states in our nation. And it's one of the states that's usually always on the radar for something. This last year has been a mess for economically, for it with the pandemic, with COVID. It's been everywhere. And so New York Police Department, the official government website, it states some statistics for May 2021. So for the month of May 2021, overall index crime in New York City rose 22% compared with May 2020, driven by a 46.7% increase in robbery and a 35.6% increase in grand larceny. Felony assault saw a 20.5% increase compared to May 2020, and shooting incidents increased to 173 versus 100 in May 2020. Burglary was the only index crime to post a reduction, down 21.8% in May 2021 compared to the previous year. There were 37 murders in May 2021, the same as May 2020. So, did you see the increases? Overall, 22% increase from the previous year. I mean, this is coming from the New York Police Department government website, showing these increases and obviously problems. And you know, I'm not justifying crime in any way, but I think there is a variable that's a little different from last year to now that we haven't seen in the past, and that would be the pandemic. You know, people being locked in their houses. I think that does something to you mentally. People struggling because their business or their job is taken away from them. Hard times come, you make decisions you wouldn't normally make. Again, not justifying any decision like that, but I think that we need to take that variable into consideration. But again, we have increases that are clearly there, stated from New York. And then we come to just the New York City government website, not the PD one, just the New York City. And this is what they put down. Most notably, the budget includes $1 billion in cuts and cost shifts to the New York Police Department while maintaining patrol strength to protect the safety of all communities. The first sentence is ridiculous anyways. It's rather pathetic. The budget includes $1 billion in cuts and cost shifts to the New York Police Department while maintaining patrol strength and protect the safety of all communities. How do you cut $1 billion yet maintain strength and protect our community? That doesn't make any sense. Of those New York Police Department savings, $115 million has been reprioritized for summer youth programming. What? $116 million for education and $134 million for family and social services. The budget also shifts $450 million to New York Police Department capital funding, to the Parks Department and NYCHA for youth and recreation centers. $450 million for funding Parks Department? Again, that sounds crazy. Number one, why are we allocating so much to something like that, in my opinion? And why are we taking it away from things that matter and that are crucial to our society? Why don't we take it from something else? Why don't we look around, or why do we not just scrap that idea? I don't know, but you can't take from something important and hope that that stays important and something else is going to be important. You can't do that. It goes on, and this is from Mayor Bill de Blasio. From reinvesting funds from the New York Police Department in youth programming and social services to building new community centers, this budget prioritizes our communities most in need while keeping New York safe. As we emerge from the epicenter of COVID-19, it's now more important than ever to create a fairer city for all. Got to make sure we throw that in there. Fairer city for all. Got to make sure we get that, okay? But again, the budget prioritizes our communities most in need while keeping New York safe. Well, communities most in need. I understand that there's an area of every state, of every city, that is going to be most affected by crime rates. Sure, I mean, why not focus efforts there? But I don't want us to take it away from other areas to make sure that area is safer, because then the other safe areas now are going to become unsafe because there's no one helping, no one watching that. And again, it's just interesting to me to see the changes in agenda. It's almost like a TV show, like a series on the network. We watch it, maybe season 1, maybe season 2. And if views aren't high enough, if not enough people are talking about it, it gets cut and something else gets put on in its place. And that's what I see in the media sometimes, and in the news. We talk about something. And when it becomes unpopular, or when it becomes less trending, then we scrap it and we go to something else and we try to make it trending. If that doesn't trend, we go to something else. Yes, I understand that journalism, that these media sources, these newspapers, whatever, that they have to make money. That's what they're doing. They're doing these things to make money. How do you make money on things like that? Well, you catch people's attention. You produce things that people want to read and they want to be interested in. But I think that the government should hold on to these ideas and find solutions for them. Maybe some do better than others. Maybe they don't. I'm not sure. I'm not a part of one yet, and I hope to be. But I want us to cling to these ideas and find a solution, and not just, again, make it go away. Ooh, they finally stopped talking about it. Yes, we can drop the idea and we can move on to something else. Well, no, we need to solve the problem, because obviously it was a big deal. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been talked about for months on end. We need to figure out a budget. We need to push forward and find a solution. Even if that solution isn't what the people even if that solution isn't what I don't know. I'm trying to think of how to word this, because the idea of the government is for the people, period. I mean, that's what it is. The leadership is in their position of power to help initiate and put into practice the things that the people want or desire, still maintaining the foundation of our nation, of our founding fathers, period. So with that in mind, Even if majority of our people, of our nation, is saying defund the police, take away that funding, well, that contradicts what our founding fathers had in mind, and research shows that doing that will hurt us as a nation, and therefore as leadership, you can't feel good and comfortable about doing what they want, knowing that it's going to have bad consequences. You can't. So despite the people not liking the decision that's made, sometimes it has to be made anyways. That's just how it goes. But when we see articles like this and we hear state governments initiating these budget cuts on things that are so crucial to our society, then someone needs to step in and do something about that. Someone needs to step in and change the way that money flows. It's all about the agenda. It's all about the narrative, and I know we go back to that, but these states that we see some of these cuts with, not all, but majority of them are liberal states, and conservatives may do this as well. I mean, a few of them don't, but they feel they've got to stay together, and that's good. It's good, except when you see the liberal side staying together for something that's not good. That's damaging to our nation. I don't know. I want a leader. I want leadership who is for the people. Second, and first, for the people, not for the people, for the foundation of our nation. They need to be for God and for our nation and for the founding principles that we have, and then they're for the people. Period. I want to live my life in accordance with God and with His Word, and if what I want to do contradicts His Word, I shouldn't do that. I don't want to do that. If my little girl or my little boy wants to do something that they know would go against mom and me, then I pray that their instinct kicks in that says, wait, they don't like that. I need to not do that. I don't want a dictatorship, but I also want leadership who has a spine and who stands up for what they know is right and what they know we need to do. So as always, I would appreciate it if you guys liked my video. If you like it, if you have any comments or suggestions, send them my way. If something I've said is out of line, is wrong, then tell me about it, and I'll be happy to correct it or to double down on it and make sure my opinion is clear and my thoughts are on point with the way I believe and the way I think. So again, as always, thank you guys for tuning in.